Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am from the Employment Department of the Multicultural Association of Fredericton, and today we'll be talking about workplace standards and workers' rights. This will help you understand your rights and responsibilities as a newcomer employee. Before we get started or dive into our presentation, we would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, whose ancestors, along with Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy nations, signed friendship treaties with the British in the 1700s. Workplace workers' rights and standards matter. Why does it matter? It helps you to understand your rights and responsibilities at work. It also helps to protect you from unfair treatment and ensure safe working conditions. In this presentation, we'll be looking at workplace rights and standards. We'll talk about employment conditions. We'll talk about compensation and leave, and we'll also talk briefly about the support and dispute resolution process. Why workplace rights and standard matters for newcomer employees or newcomer workers? In Canada, newcomers often face unique challenges such as unfamiliar labor laws, language barriers, and limited knowledge about workplace rights. Of course, it is different from where we all came from as newcomers. So these are some of the challenges newcomers face. Also, it helps newcomers to understand their rights and how to properly navigate their new work environment confidently, and it helps protect them from potential exploitation. Now, what is workplace standard rights? These are set of rules and regulations set aside by government to ensure fair treatment, safe work conditions, and respect for workers' rights. Examples of these include rules for wages and overtime pay, safety regulations to protect health, prohibition of discrimination and harassment. It is important to also note that these standards are legally enforceable in Canada, and they can vary province by province. Every province has their employment standard act. Human rights are protected in Canada. Every worker's rights are protected in Canada. And some of the protected grounds includes race, gender, your religion, your sexual orientation, your family status, and lots more. Employers cannot discriminate or fire or pay or promote anyone, and they are not also allowed to have harassment in workplaces. There are legislations to this: Canada Human Rights Act and the New Brunswick Human Rights Act. There are places you can go to get more information on this. Key rights of workers across Canada. Every worker in Canada, be it newcomer or not, they have rights to fair pay and benefits. They have right to join or form unions. They have rights to a safe working environment, right to be free from harassment or discrimination, and they have right to refuse unsafe work environment. Now we will talk briefly about newcomers' rights or workers' rights in New Brunswick. This is governed by the Employment Standard Acts and other provincial laws. The rights include paid public holiday, overtime pay after 40 hours a week, rules for breaks and leave, protections for injured workers. This can be found in the Workers' Compensation Act. Here you will get to know what are the kind of statutory holidays covered within the New Brunswick province. What is your overtime rate pay after 40 hours a week? You get to know your breaks and leave. How many vacation days do you have within the fiscal year? How many minutes of break do you have? Is it 30 minutes break? Is it 1 hour break? Is it paid or unpaid? These are the things we are trying to talk about here. It's also important that a newcomer as employee to understand your employment contracts. These are outlines of your terms and conditions for the job you just got. Employment contract are simply terms and conditions of the job you just got. And these may include your job titles and responsibilities, which we call the job descriptions, conditions of employment, which include your start date, the location, the duration, like how many hours are you supposed to work in a day, and how many work hours you're supposed to have within a week. It will also talk about your probation period. Either it's a 3 month probation period or a 6 month probation period, or even if it's a 1 month probation period, this will be found in your employment contract. Also, what you will find in your employment contract is your maximum weekly working hour. If you're supposed to work 8 hours a day, which will be like 40 hours a week, or if you're supposed to work 7 hours a week, 37 hours a week, I mean, which means you're supposed to work 7 hours a day. It will talk about your wage or salary, if it is monthly paid or it's bi-weekly payment. It will include your overtime rules as well. All this information will be in your contract. Deduction for programs such as CPP, Canada Pension Plan, your EI, that's employment insurance. These are important information that should be clearly outlined in your employment contract. It is important for you to keep a copy of your contract for record purpose. Both you and your employer are legally bound to the contract terms. And if disputes arise, having a copy will help you resolve such issues. Termination rules. In most cases, you know, your employer must give you written notice before your last day or pay you in lieu, which means instead. This is called termination pay. When notice is not required, employers are not required to give you notice if you are letting go for just cause, such as serious misconduct or thefts, repeating missing work without valid reason. No notice is required if your employer is for a specific time period or task. You need to understand that. There are provincial regulations, however. In New Brunswick, the length of notice depends on how long you've worked for such an employer. Some places, if you have worked 6 months to 5 years, you require 2 weeks notice. And if you have worked more than 5 years, you require 4 weeks notice. So either it is from the employer or from the employee. It requires 2 weeks notice if you have worked with them for 6 months to 5 years, and require 4 weeks notice if you have worked with them for more than 5 years. However, employer does not require notice if you are letting you go for serious misconduct, as we said earlier, such as serious misconduct at work or theft. You are repeatedly missing work without any valid reason. They will not require any notice at this period. But if they are letting you go on some other or for some other reasons, or you are the one resigning, they must give you at least 2 week notice if you have spent 6 months to 5 years, or vice versa. And if you have spent 5 years or more, they must give you 4 weeks notice. Everyone and every employee should remember that safety first in anything you do. So, your right to a safe workplace matters. Employers in New Brunswick must ensure a healthy and safe work environment. As an employee, you have the right to know about hazard in your workplace. You have the right to participate in identifying and resolving safety issues. You also have the right to refuse dangerous work without fear of punishment. Okay? What are your responsibilities and your employer's responsibilities? Employer must provide training on safe work practices and emergency procedures. They must also maintain equipment and ensure proper protective gear is available to every employee. They must report serious incidents or injuries to WorkSafe New Brunswick. These are part of your employer responsibilities. We won't talk about employer responsibilities without also talking about employee responsibilities. So these are few workers' responsibilities. You must follow all safety procedures and use protective equipment properly as outlined and as trained. You must report hazards or unsafe conditions immediately to your supervisor. You must also avoid endangering yourself or others in the workplace. How do you report workplace abuse under the provincial or the federal option? Understanding workplace abuse. Workplace abuse includes either harassment, bullying, discrimination, or violence. Both provincial and federal system offer protection and pathways to report all these. How do you report in New Brunswick? Who to contact? You have to contact the Employment Standard Office for issues such as harassment, unfair treatment, related to employment standard. These are the information about the employment standard branch within the New Brunswick right on your screen. Also, WorkSafe MB, you can report harassment which involve health and safety concerns to them. Steps to report: you have to document incident, dates, time, and make sure you keep details of such incident. Speak with your supervisor or the HR if it is safe. Then file a formal complaint if the issue is unresolved. Federal reporting or for federally regulated workplaces, who to contact. The Labour Program, which is the Employment and Social Development Canada, for issues like discriminations, harassment. These are within a federally regulated sectors like the banks, the transportation, the aviation, or the telecommunication industry. You have to contact the Employment and Social Development Canada and report this issue to them. The information is right on your screen for you to use in case if such issue come up. Also, the Canadian Human Rights Commission. They can also be reached for discrimination based on race, gender, disability, or other protected grounds. So for issues that are related to age, gender, disability, or other protected grounds, you go to the Canadian Human Rights Commission. But for issues such as harassment or discrimination within a federally regulated sectors like the bank, transportation, communication, aviation, this goes through the Employment and Social Development of Canada. Employment standards and workers' protection in New Brunswick. It is important as workers to understand your rights because it helps to ensure fair treatment, safe working conditions, and access to the wages and benefits you deserve. Now, let's quickly explore the key protection and standard in New Brunswick and say that can safeguard employees and support workplace fairness. Here we will talk about wages, overtime, leaves, and holidays. It's quite a lot, but these are the QR code you can scan to have a better understanding and information about all this within New Brunswick. So if you're within New Brunswick, please feel free to scan each of these QR code for you to have a better understanding. For instance, if you want information about minimum wage and overtime rules, please scan the first QR code. If you want information about leaves and leave of absence, paid and unpaid, feel free to scan the second QR code. The third QR code gives more information about statutory holidays and vacation pay, while the fourth one gives more information about child care leaves. So please feel free to scan each of these QR code in order for you to have better understanding of what is covered and what is not covered. Right? But briefly, we'll talk about pay stubs, deductions, and rest days. Your pay stub, employer must provide a detailed pay stub which will clearly show your gross wages, it will show your deductions, and it will show net wages. These deductions are mandatory, and it can be either the CPP, which is the Canada Pension Plan, it will be EI, which is employment insurance, and federal and provincial income taxes. So this image shows briefly what it will look like on your pay stub and what was deducted, and it will now give you your total net. Your net is what you will get paid at the end of all the deductions. From what you can see, you have worked 80 hours, so your gross pay is 1,390. But after the deduction, that is when you have your net pay. The deductions are what we mentioned earlier, which is the Canada Pension Plan, the employment insurance, then the federal and provincial income taxes. All this will have been deducted from your gross pay. If your gross pay is $2,000, they will deduct all these three mandatory deductions. Then you'll be left with the net pay. The net pay is what comes into your account that you are paid at the end of the day. You can see from this pay stub sample that you also have healthcare deduction. This is optional because this is employer related. You can choose to contribute with your employer health insurance, and you can choose not to. If you choose not to, this healthcare will not be on your pay stub. But if you choose to include yourself or your family under this, it will be deducted. So whatever is left after all these deduction is what you call your net pay, because that will be your take home at the end of the day. This is what will come to you as an individual at the end of the day, at the end of the month, either monthly or bi-weekly. I hope that is clear. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the MCF Employment Service Department. I'll be more than happy to provide answers. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.